Hi, this feels really weird. Welcome to my first knitting podcast. I've recently decided to give it a go, see what happens. If you don't know me, my name is Eleanor. I live in the English countryside with my husband-to-be and our little cat, soon to be 2 cats. More on that next time. And I dedicate my time to living the coziest life that I possibly can. So I've actually been around in the internet space for a little while. I've been on Instagram as Cosy Book Corner for a number of years, but recently my tastes have been pivoting a lot towards knitting, and I'm very, very passionate about where that's all going. So I just wanted to have a little cozy corner of the internet to talk about all of my projects. If you've been here from Instagram, hello, thank you for joining me with this change in content style. I want to combine things, so instead of being Cosy Book Corner, which is my previous username, I'm now Cosy Books and Knits. So my goal is to share all of my knitting projects with you in quite a traditional podcast format, as well as just telling you a little bit about the books I've been reading too. And some general life stuff. Maybe one day I'll get up to some vlogs, pattern roundups, those sorts of things. I'm an aspiring knitwear designer too, so I may share some of my process on that journey with you all as we go along with it. So I would invite you to get cozy, grab a beverage and join me as we embark on this first podcast. Morgan at Morgan Unravelled, who I will tag in the description box, has really inspired me to start this podcast. I've seen her content around and it is just so wonderfully cozy, and she's such a sweet person, and I've been seeing all the lovely success that she's been having since she started her podcast, and I wanted to join in, and she told me I should, so thank you, Morgan, for your inspiration. Let's give it a go. So the normal podcast format would be finished objects, whips and acquisitions, and I think I will stick to that for most episodes. There is nothing I love more than to stick on a podcast of one of my favourites when I'm just sitting with my morning coffee before I start work and just feel like I'm sitting catching up with a friend. So I absolutely love a traditional format of podcast, so I think I'm going to go with that. But for this week, I don't think I'm going to talk about any finished objects, because obviously I've not started taking you through the process of any of my projects. So there's nothing really finished from previous episodes to talk about. And we're in a new season now, so I've not really had any autumnal knits that have finished that I can talk about. So we're going to skip finished objects and just go straight into my works in progress. So the first one I'm going to talk about is my Heirloom Quilt Cardigan by Katrin Seeberger, which is one of the most beautiful patterns I've ever seen. I will put a picture here of her pattern photos. So as you can see, it is just, I mean, quilts have been trending everywhere in the knitting community recently. I keep seeing people talk about the quilt socks that have been everywhere, and Laura Penrose's Stella quilt cushions and blankets. So this just kind of takes that one step further into like a patchwork quilty cardigan, and I love it. It's absolutely divine. I was a little bit intimidated by flat colourwork, knitting stranded colourwork flat, but to be honest, it's more or less just the same. And I'm sure my technique is probably absolutely terrible, but I've just been rolling with it, and the squares block out beautifully with the yarn I've been using, so it's all working out. And there's so many squares that you can't even see what's going on, so I'm not too worried about my colour work on this one. But my progress is that I have all of my squares, and I actually have a few that I've started to seam up. And is this not the most divine thing that you have ever seen? These, they're scrumptious. They are wonderful. I love them so much. So I went for a very sort of autumnal cozy colour palette, because this is a really big oversized cardigan with big balloon sleeves, so I really wanted just the most autumnal throw over, so shades of green and brown and orange to just throw over anything and just have the most sort of adorable cozy. I don't wear shawls, so I feel like this will almost take that place in my wardrobe of just something to kind of throw on over all of my autumnal dresses and just be cozy and warm. Exactly like a quilted blanket really, but just in a cardigan form. So I'm using Drops soft tweed in a variety of different colours, and I've had to make 27 of these squares for the size 2, which has taken quite some time. I started this on a weekend away in Derbyshire. We got an Airbnb of a very cozy little cabbage in the Derbyshire Moor sort of area, and it was very Jane Eyre, and it was a really rainy weekend. It was the bank holiday weekend at the very end of August. Cat interruption. I guess that's Tilda's official introduction. Do you want to come here and say hello? No, she doesn't. This is my ragdoll Tilda. She will be the unofficial mascot of this channel. She is adorable. She has a little grumpy face, but she loves me, I promise. So she will get everywhere. She doesn't like to be alone, so she's always harassing me and following me around. So you will often see her tail poking out. There's a little windowsill up here that she loves to sit on. So that is Tilda. She's made her introduction. Anyway, where were we? So we were on a weekend away in Derbyshire, living best autumnal vibes. Even though it was August, it went super rainy and cold. It was walks in the sort of rainy, misty moors, and we watched Jane Eyre and had the wood burner going, and I just felt like I was transported into 1800s and November, but it was wonderful. So that's when I truly started that. So as I say, that was the last week of August. So it's been a while. These have taken me some time. I mean, I've got some other whips that I've worked on in that time, but this has been my main project, so it's taken a while. So this was knit up with Drops soft tweed in a variety of colours. This one was carrot cake, cookie dough, grizzly bear, spinach pie, I think it was called. And then there was also marzipan, the white, and guacamole, the light green. So I'm really enjoying this yarn. It's really soft. It's not the easiest to work with because it does break really easily because it's very loosely plied, but once it's knit up, it's really nice and soft, and it has a lot more sort of integrity than it does when it's just a single strand. I was worried about using it single stranded when I realised how easily breakable it was. However, I think it's fine now it's knitted up. It seems to be quite strong. So I'm really looking forward to knitting this up and seeing how it wears. It's quite rustic looking, but it's very soft, which is nice because I don't think I can handle a lot of the really rustic, scratchy yarns. So this is a bit of a sort of in between with the tweediness, but still being nice and soft. So I will look forward to seeing how that wears. It is more of an inexpensive yarn, so I don't have high hopes for how it's gonna wear over time. I think it might end up being a bit bobbly, and I could see it maybe stretching out a bit. We'll see. I was slightly off gauge for this project as well, so that's probably not all the fault of the yarn. It's probably a little bit of my fault for the gauge as well. But there's some very satisfying floats on the back of these. They're not as neat as they could be, but they're quite satisfying. And I don't think they're all that bad, to be honest, for knitting colour work flat. So that's my first project. My second project to talk about today, I cast on yesterday in a just fit of passion. I got to the point where all the knitting for the body of this, once they're put together, I still have to do the sleeves and the button bands, but all the knitting on the squares was done. So, and we're away for this weekend, so I wanted something super easy and simple, a nice stockinette project just to be going, something I could fly through. And I really wanted to knit a raglan because I don't have any raglans, any true raglans. I've done raglan stitches on various other projects, but I don't have any true raglan projects in my wardrobe, and I just wanted something super soft, cozy to throw on, especially seeing as a lot of the weather at the moment, it's turning autumnal, so especially when you're outside, I want something cozy, and I want to feel really cozy when I'm sitting inside, but it's not actually cold enough, especially in my house, which is a cottage, but I used to live in a Tudor house that was freezing, so I'm so used to cold weather. And it being really cold in the house, and now we have double glazing and I'm finding it really warm, so I can't wear all of my super thick jumpers yet, so I wanted something a little bit lighter. So I cast on the Felix pullover by Amy Christophers, and that is here, and you can see a colour scheme emerging. I'm not gonna say that like burgundy is the colour of the season, but it's the colour of the season. So I literally cast this on last night, done the little neckband, done the short rows, so as you can see we've got a little neckband there, and then short rows at the back where it's quite a lot deeper, and then it's got these really pretty little eyelet details on the sort of raglan increases, so it's going to have eyelets that kind of go down the front and the back, and I really like eyelets. I think they add like a really nice texture to a pattern, and this is just so soft and cozy. So I went a little bit rogue on the yarn for this project. It's Drops brushed alpaca silk held double. So what I've done is I've actually just wound 2 strands of it up into one ball to make it super easy to work with, and it's working perfectly, because I just wanted the sort of soft fluffy look, because I just didn't want anything too bulky. Well, I wanted to knit something with quite a, you know, fluffy softness to it, and I just couldn't be bothered to knit a fingering weight jumper because I'm still recovering from summer knitting. So I just did not want to do a fingering weight garment because I want this to be so quick. So I wanted something that I could work up on quite chunky needles. These are 6mm, which I think is the chunkiest needles I've ever used for a garment project. And I wanted it to just fly off the needles basically, so I didn't want to bother with fine yarn or a pattern that called for fine yarn, but I also didn't want something thick, and I've just dropped a stitch from waving this around like a madwoman, which is just ideal, isn't it? So I didn't want anything dense and heavy and too hot, so I wanted something, and this is just mostly fluff, but it fills out really beautifully. So it's this pattern, the Felix pullover, uses quite a loose gauge to get quite a flowy garment anyway, and then holding 2 strands of this very fluffy, it says it works up as an Aran on its own, but I think if you did that it would be so holy, and that wasn't the look I was going for, so I thought I would hold it double, and it's making a really lovely lightweight but super fluffy fabric, and I was inspired to do that because I cannot remember the designer, but I don't know if you've seen the Arara cardigan. I saw this and I thought the texture was so beautiful. It looked like it was so soft and fuzzy but so light, and she used Drops brushed alpaca silk held double for that cardigan. So I looked at the gauge that she had for that cardigan and it was quite similar, and I was convinced I could make it work for this, so I gave it a go, and what do you know, I'm getting a very similar look, a very similar fabric and look as there is for that cardigan. I just didn't want to knit a cardigan because I've knit a cardigan here and I'll talk about later. I've got another cardigan lined up, so I just wanted a very easy simple raglan, and this is fulfilling that perfectly. So I feel like this is absolutely going to fly off the needles. So next time I speak to you, I'm sure I will be a lot further along than this. So the next project is a pair of socks, and this is the Alma Socks by the New York Year. I've done one complete sock and then one that I have the leg all the way up to the cuff. And I've not blocked these, so it looks a little messy for right now, but the texture on these socks is absolutely unreal. So it has these beautiful cables down either side that just have such a lovely sort of texture where it's like diamonds and then diamonds within the diamonds. So it's almost like a bit of a take on the very traditional diamond cable, but a lot smaller for a sock. And then you've got this moss stitch or seed stitch, don't know the difference, and then a rib on the back, and then it carries that all the way down. It's got a heel that is a pearl heel, which I've never done before, and I am skeptical because I like to wear my socks, so I like a heel flap and gusset of the traditional slip stitch heel flap, because I feel like it's durable. So I'm a little bit worried, but we'll see how that goes. So these are absolutely beautiful. The yarn I've used is the Earth Yarns Harvest Fingering in the colour Cinnamon, and I think that's a naturally hand-dyed yarn, and it just feels like the most gorgeous pumpkin spice colour that was so perfect for October. So I always like to have a big project and then a little project on the go, so I can have something a little bit more portable. So this has been my little project whilst I've been working on the heirloom quilt cardigan, and it's giving me all the autumnal vibes. And I actually, on my sock that I'm working on currently, you can see I've got this adorable little pumpkin stitch marker that I made. That was a fun little autumn craft that I did. I made the little polymer clay charms. I did a little cat, a little ghosty, a little pumpkin spice latte, and this little pumpkin, and then put them on stitch markers, and that was tremendously fun. So I've got that on the go, and these are just my little pumpkin spice socks is what I'm calling them, and I love them. They're really lovely. I cannot wait to have the second one finished so I can wear them. So I really need to crack on with that. And then the last work in progress I'm going to talk about for today is actually one I'm bringing out of hibernation. So this was the last project I was working on last winter before the spring came in, and I started working on other things, so I put it on hold, and I feel like it is time to pull it out of hibernation. So that is my Lauder vest by the Creabear, Rebecca Clow, who is one of my absolute favourite podcasters. I love her designs. They're always so beautifully written, they're so easy to follow. Love them, and I just envy the way her brain works in all of the ideas that she can come up with. So this is my Lauder vest, and I got the V-neck done, under the arms, joined for the round, did a fair bit of body, and I want this to be quite cropped, and this yarn will grow a lot when I block it because the cables are really shrunk up right now. So I really don't need to do that much more on it. I feel like I need maybe that much body and then ribbing, because I want it to be like, I want it to hit right at my waist for wearing with dresses. So yeah, I feel like this does not need that much more work, but it has such a beautiful cable texture. And I love that it has these cables that run over the drop shoulder. The details on this are just beautiful. Getting it caught in my ring there. No, they're cables that sort of run alongside, and I need to do the, it'll have ribbing around the armholes and around the neckline as well, so that will get added on and it'll look even more neat. But this is beautiful, and I love the texture, and I'm really happy to be picking this one up again, because I really want to wear this one. I've got so many green dresses and things that could really use a lovely cable knit vest, so I need to pick this one up and get cracking, because it is a lot of cables but they're quite easy. The yarn I'm using is Drop Sleemer. I think the colour was Ivy. So it's quite a grippy yarn, so I can cable without a cable needle, and that makes it go quite quickly. So yeah, it's not that really difficult. I think if from memory, the cables were every 4 rows. So again, it's, you know, it's quite intensive, but they're quick and they're quite easy cables. So it's a nice, easy, simple one. So I cannot wait to carry on with that. So yes, pulling this one out of hibernation to carry on with that. So next time, I hope I will have a progress update for you on that one. So that is all of my works in progress. I think the next thing I want to talk you through is some acquisitions, because I've got some plans for autumn knits, and I have bought some wool to share with you. But I'm really, really excited to get going and talk about those autumn plans. So the first thing I picked up was this beautiful tweed. It's a sort of charcoaly colour, and the texture, so it's a charcoaly colour with like light beigey brown and white flecks in it, and that was from Peak District Yarns, which is a really cool little dye studio, and they open their studio and have lots that you can choose from, and that's in Tidswell in the Peak District, which is where we went on our weekend away, our Jane Eyre Weekend of Dreams, in August. And I picked this up with a view to making some fingerless mitts for the autumn, and I am trying to decide what sort of pattern to go with, because I did want to make a pair of Alma mitts to match this, or one of the other New York Years patterns, because they're all beautiful textured. There's a pair called the OG mitts, I think, which have this almost like Gothic architecture arches around the cuff, and then the rest is ribbed. But I'm unsure what kind of texture is going to work with this, because I feel like being tweedy, with all the like little, do they call it nep or something, don't they? Donegal nep, yeah, that's with all the little tweedy flecks. I don't know how well that's going to look, or how good that will look in something very heavily textured and cabled. So that may end up either one of the other yarns I will show you may end up as mitts and this ends up as socks, or I may end up picking a simpler mitt pattern to make with these. But whenever I travel, I like to find a yarn store, a local yarn store, and to pick up a hand-dyed or interesting skein of sock wool as a little souvenir, just to have like a little something associated with that place. We went to Cornwall over the summer, and I went to Stitches and Cream in Falmouth, and I picked up a beautiful skein there that really reminded me of the area, reminded me of Land's End and Lizard Point. So I did the same thing then, and I'm going to make it a little bit of a routine that when we travel, particularly in the UK, to find a local yarn store and pick up something that sort of reminds me of the area or calls out to me, because I just think that's a lovely little souvenir for a knitter to have, is just something made of something special from a trip. So the next thing I picked up was something that was to assuage my need for burgundy that is just consuming me this year. I love jewel tones anyway. I love green, I love lots of rich autumnal colours like browns and navies, but I don't have that much burgundy or purple in my wardrobe. So I had a real craving for some moody, dark burgundy purples. So I picked up these two from my local yarn store, and they are both the Knit Pro Symphony hand-dyed yarns. That's the label. So it's a superwash merino with 25% nylon fingering weight, and this colour is mahogany, and this one the label fell off, so I'm not sure what it is, but it's almost like black in some areas with these purples running throughout it, and then this one is quite a true purpley It's got quite a sheen to it, this, and it's very, very soft. Like, it's a lot more sort of soft and floppy than a lot of the sock yarns I work with, so I'll be interested to see how that goes. But the colours absolutely enticed me, and there were some other colours in this same yarn that I loved, so I think I will see how they wear, see how they work up, and I may end up getting more. But this purple's almost got like a bit of a, almost like a black halo to it. It's really interesting. It's really hard to show on camera and get that across, but I felt like these were just giving me the sort of dark, moody, autumnal purples that I've been looking for. And I think maybe this one is destined to become the quilty cabin socks that I have seen everywhere. I'll put a picture up here. There was a pair I saw that I think may have been on the pattern listing on Ravelry. I'll see if I can find that specific picture and put them up here, because the sort of, that was in a dark browny, maroony, purpley colour, and it just spoke to me. I absolutely loved them, so I thought that is my next pair of socks. I need me some quilty cabin socks, and I need them in a sort of deep, moody, purpley colour. So that's what this I think is going to go on, and I think I've just got some scraps of probably some Drops Nord or Drops Fable in a sort of white, cream, light grey, something like that I can pair with it. So I'll go through my stash to find some scraps from another project for the contrast colour, but this will be the main colour, I think. And then who knows what this will become, but I couldn't pick between them. So one of them will become quilty cabin socks and the other one will become something else, who knows. The last yarn acquisition, I suppose I could count this as an acquisition because I only bought this yesterday and then cast it on immediately, so I didn't even have a chance to make it into the acquisitions, but I've already spoken about that, the Drops brushed alpaca silk. But the last thing that I have is some Cascade 220. I swear I've been buying other colours, but I just realised everything I hold up is this, it just matches this sofa, which is the new armchair that we bought, which is my perfect cozy reading chair. But I get, does anyone else get like this with colours, where you just see one colour and suddenly you're obsessed with it, everything must be that colour, and then the next year it's just a different colour? And I don't like consumerism, so I don't like to buy things and then replace them, so I try not to have anything in too much of a fashion colour or a trending colour, because I want things to last. But this colour is just so beautiful, and I didn't have enough of it in my house, and our whole sitting room is sort of dual toned themed. You'll see this change in the coming weeks as we decorate, because we've just had plastering done, so it's all changing, but this is going to be a very dark, moody, dual-toned room anyway. So it worked, but yeah, my wardrobe is slowly just becoming burgundy, but that was a bit of a tangent. Anyway, this is Cascade 220. Let me see if I can find the colour. I am not sure, it just has a colour number, but I think it was something like Sienna Heather, or I can't remember. I should have checked that really. But I've never used Cascade 220 before, and I just hear it raved about as such a workhorse yarn, something that kind of you can do so much with, and it just makes cables look fantastic. So I've been wanting to try it for a while, and as you can see, there's, I hope you can see that, but there's like lots of flecks of almost like burgundy, purple, brown, like navy blue, all in there. So it's really heathered, it's really interesting, but there's no variegation throughout the actual yarn. So from a distance it looks solid, but then it's just got beautiful heathering close up, and I really like that when I've got something more textured to do and you don't want too much colour variation, but I really enjoy a bit of heathering for a bit of depth and texture. So I have that, and this is destined to become the book club cardigan by Sari Nordland, because I've never had an original thought in my life. No, I just keep seeing everyone else with their book club cardigans, because there was a knit along not that long ago, so a lot of people have just finished them and they're wearing them and they look so autumnal and cozy, and I've been craving it. Morgan from Morgan Unravelled just made the most beautiful sort of brownie beige one that she wears in all of her podcasts and videos, and I just get so jealous every time I see it, because the cables on that cardigan are just stunning, and I'm a sucker for cables and I'm a sucker for cardigans, so I need that in my life. That was going to be my next project, but I decided to sort of cleanse the palette a little bit from complex patterns and from stranded colour work. I didn't want to then jump straight into a really intricate cable pattern that I knew was going to take me a really long time. So that's why I'm having my Felix pullover as a bit of a palette cleanser. But then after that, I think I will go straight onto the book club cardigan by Sari Nordland. And so this is the colour that I'll be using, and I'm really, really excited for that. So yeah, those are all the knitting things that I have to talk about, so thank you for sticking around with me. If you have any interest in sticking around to hear me talk about a couple of the books that I've been reading as well, that would be lovely. Please stay and hang out, but if not, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next time. But for the rest of you who are interested in reading, I will chat to you a little bit about that. So I'm a big reader, always have been. As I say, the start of my Instagram was in Bookstagram, and now I've diversified a little, but I still wanted to keep a little segment in here to talk to you about some of the books that I've been reading. So the book I just finished, I believe it's up on my shelf, and that is Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. This is the author of If We Were Villains. She just brought out her first work since If We Were Villains, and it is a novella. I believe she has a full-length novel in the works, but for now we are just getting a novella, and this was really good. I don't usually go for novellas because I don't like when a book can't really develop characters and a plot line very much, because we have very, very limited space, but I feel like M.L. Rio did a lot with the space that she was given, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It was very sort of eerie, perfect for like a rainy October evening. So if you want to just sit down and read something that will be a little bit weird, a little bit unnerving on a spooky rainy evening, then I definitely would recommend picking this up. There's also an essay at the back of it that, if you like dark academia as a genre, is really, really interesting to read. Because obviously If We Were Villains is kind of being hailed with The Secret History as the foundation of the dark academia genre, really, even though when they were written dark academia wasn't really a thing. So both Tonna Tart and M.L. Rio have kind of been pushed into this legendary status within dark academia without any sort of involvement in that decision. So she writes a very, very interesting essay on her take on dark academia and her relationship with academia at the end of this, and that's well worth a read. It was very, very interesting, a lot of food for thought. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. The only criticism I've seen is that the ending is quite abrupt, and I do agree. However, I think that left it quite ambiguous and really made me think about what the next steps were for the characters. So I won't say too much, because there is not a lot of wiggle room in terms of spoilers being so short, so I don't want to say too much. But if you want something October-y, I would say if you like books like Ninth House, then yeah, you'll enjoy that one, so I recommend that. And then my current read I actually don't have with me, and I cannot be bothered to run upstairs and go and get it. So I meant to bring it down, but I forgot. So I will just tell you about it, and that is Gerald Skin by Stephen King. And I like Stephen King. I've got a few up on my shelves, as you can see, and I feel like they're just perfect for this time of year. And when I get to this time of year, I'm craving like a weird spooky story set in New England, and Stephen King always delivers. So I've only just started it, so I don't have much to say. However, it is very interesting. There was a film adaptation a few years ago, and I really liked the premise. I thought it was really interesting, and I like when Stephen King writes a book that is more psychological rather than fantastical. So that really appealed to me. However, I was too scared to watch the film. I'll put it that. It's just, that was the simple thing. I was too scared to watch the film. So I was fancying something along that sort of psychological side of things. I think I saw a clip from the movie come up on my TikTok, and I was like, no, I really do want to enjoy that story, but I'm too scared for the movie. So for some weird reason, I thought the book would be easier because I suppose at least when I get really scared, I can just put it down. And I don't find books generally as scary as I do films, so I figured if I was going to enjoy the story without being too scared, that I would try the book. And so far that's going all right. I'm just, every time I try and read at the moment, I just fall asleep, so it's not going, it's very slow progress, but we'll get there, and hopefully I'll have more thoughts on that to share with you next time. So thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble about all of the yarn and books that I love. So please share with me what you've been knitting down below. Share with me what books you've been reading, if you like to read books. If not, maybe what films you've been watching, what TV shows. My favourite TV show at the moment is Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Me and my partner have been watching that on cozy evenings, and there are so many seasons and so many episodes that it's really keeping us busy, and I'm really enjoying that. And I like that I now understand why Taylor Swift has a cat called Olivia Benson. So yeah, I've been enjoying Law and Order. So if you don't read books, share with me what TV show you've been watching. Yeah, share with me what you've been reading. Share with me a little bit about yourselves. If you're getting to know me, let me get to know you too. So do you have pets? What sort of area do you live? Drop comments, let's have a chat. You can follow me over on Instagram, Cosy Books and Knits. If you want more of my day-to-day life or just want to have a chat, just message me. All lovely. And I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for being part of this first podcast episode. I've had a lot of fun, and I'll check in with you guys next time.